Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start a little bit earlier. It's 4:08. I apologize for saying 4:10, but those who I was waiting for have all arrived. I'm calling to order the, first and foremost, I wish to wish all of you a Happy New Year. This is our first board meeting of 2016. And I call to order the January 26th, 2016 board meeting of the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Vasquez, will you lead us today in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Secretary, may we have a roll call?
Yes, sir. Mr. Cancio.
Present.
Mr. Ferre.
Here.
Mr. Gonzalez. Ms. Gutierrez. Mr. Meyer.
Present.
Mr. Vasquez. Mr. Walters.
Here.
Ms. Weinberg, I'm not sure she's on the phone. Secretary Pago.
Here.
Treasurer Rodriguez Pina.
Here.
Vice Chair Fano. Chair Martinez.
Here.
We have a quorum, sir.
The next matter is the approval of the agenda. I'd like to make some friendly amendments to the agenda. We have two very, very special dignitaries who are here today in Ms. Alice Bravo and Ms. Eileen Bouclé, who I'm going to give the opportunity to, I wish to introduce to the board after we have the declaration of comments and prior to the citizens' comments. So I'd like to add as agenda item D-A, the introduction of them to the staff. Also, our extremely honorable Mayor Ferre has sent an email to all of us indicating some concerns he has relating to the MPO. What I'm going to do is, Mr. Ferre, I'm going to refer that to the intergovernmental subcommittee to evaluate it more thoroughly, and then perhaps down the line we could see if there's anything that needs to be done on that as well. Those are the only changes I have. Does anyone have any objection to the changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda has been changed at this time. Council, if you could call the declarations of voting conflicts.
Chairman, did you address item E?
Not. I will address item E when we get to item E, though. And so far.
Do any members of this board have any conflicts with any items on the agenda? Showing none, we move forward.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor today to introduce two very distinguished individuals in the transportation field, Ms. Alice Bravo and Ms. Eileen Bouclé. And if in any way, shape, or form I made a mistake with your names, please forgive me. Ms. Bravo, in July of last year, was appointed as the county transportation czar, overseeing Miami-Dade Transit Department, Public Works Department, and all transportation mobility issues. Alice leads in all efforts to improve and expand transportation in Miami-Dade County, working closely with federal government, Florida Department of Transportation, the Miami-Dade County Metropolitan Planning Organization, and yes, us, yours truly, the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. Prior to joining Mayor Jimenez and Miami-Dade County, Alice was the Deputy City Manager and Chief of Infrastructure at the City of Miami. She oversaw 6 departments, including capital improvement, transportation, public works, planning and zoning, building, real estate asset management, and information technology. That's a mouthful, so if I forgot anything, I'm very sorry. She first joined the city as a capital improvement director overseeing $573 million capital improvement program dollars, and was responsible for implementing the city's trolley circular system, which is really good, by the way. Prior to joining the City of Miami, Alice served as District 6 Director of Transportation Systems Development with the Florida Department of Transportation. She was responsible for all production aspects of the district, including planning, public transportation, design, and right-of-way, and environment management. Through her career, Alice has been responsible for managing a number of diversified public and private partnership projects involving design, construction, finance, operation, and maintenance, including the $1 billion Port Miami Tunnel and the innovative I-95 Express project, and the $550 million 836 interchange construction project. I have had the opportunity to meet with Ms. Bravo, and she is a dynamic individual, and I am looking forward to working with her and Mayor Jimenez's staff in the continuous endeavor to try to improve our transportation system. Ms. Bravo, if you have the opportunity to say something, I'd love to hear from you today.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to come here and address the board today. Certainly, I've had the opportunity to work with almost all of you over the years, especially Secretary Pago, your executive director. So I'm very optimistic that with everything that's going on in our community, we're going to develop plans, synergies, collaboration, everything that's needed and is deserved in a community like Miami. When I was at the City of Miami, I often met with developers with international backgrounds, and they'd say, Alice, this is an international city, but you need an international transportation system. So we have to acknowledge that people come here from all over the world, and they get here with a certain level of expectation as to what transportation system is going to be here, just because it's so normal everywhere else. So I think it's important that right now this is such an important dialogue in our community, that we have generations of people that are moving into downtown and don't want to have a car. So I think we have to take opportunity of all of this, work together, develop a consensus plan for our community, and really move forward. Because if not, this opportunity, we can't afford to let it slip by. It's been too long in the making. We've all worked on different projects over the years, and sometimes they fail because of that lack of consensus. So right now, things are important enough that we can make it happen. And I want to especially thank your executive director. From day one, we've been talking on how to do things together, big and small, and everything from how to solve a bottleneck at a certain interchange, and also how we can piggyback off MDX's marketing dollars to spread the public transportation message throughout our community. So I look forward to working with all of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you so much for being here today.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Briefly,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
I just want to say that I've had the privilege of working with Alice because of my FTC situation. And I just wanted to point out that Alice just achieved the changing of the name of Miami-Dade, which means Miami-Dade Transit, to Miami-Dade Transportation. And I think that's exactly what's going on, and that is that the county is approaching these issues as a transportation issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Alice, it is an honor for you to be here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to be here with us today. And I'm very much looking forward, and I speak for staff and all of the board, that we are looking very forward to working with you and the mayor and moving forward, because I agree, we can't build our way with excessive highways in multiple directions out of the transportation needs we're going to have. We all need to work together.
Yeah. Right now, we all have one mission, mobility. And
Absolutely.
We're going to figure it out together.
Exactly. Thank you again. We are also honored today to have with us Eileen Bouclé. In December, the Miami-Dade Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO, governing board appointed Eileen Bouclé as their new secretariat and executive director. Eileen is responsible for conducting the planning process for Miami-Dade County Complex Transportation Network, and we all know it's really complex, which includes the implementation of policies established by the MPO governing board and directing, managing, and planning for projects and programs that enhance Miami-Dade County transportation. The MPO's 5-year transportation improvement program, the TIP, is the most robust in the state, with over $7 billion of proposed transportation improvements representing intermodal, highway, transit, aviation, seaport, and non-motorized projects. Eileen joined the MPO after serving as their intermodal systems development administrator with the Florida Department of Transportation. She was responsible for the Transportation Planning Office, Concept Development Unit, the Environment Management Office, and the Freight Logistics and Passenger Operations Office, specializing in all modes of transportation, including transit, aviation, seaport, rail, freight, pedestrian, bicycle, highway, roadway, and intermodal facilities. Prior to joining the FDOT, Eileen was a private sector senior planner involved in all aspects of transportation development, including land use projects, development, environment, right-of-way, and traffic forecasting. She also served with the Miami-Dade County School Board as agency MPO liaison, coordinating student-related transportation needs. She began her career as a business analyst with Dun and Bradstreet, developing strong financial base in business and real estate. Eileen, I'd like to first welcome you to the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. I've heard nothing but fantastic things about you. Our representative to the MPO, Mayor Ferre, has spoken very highly of what he believes is going to be the future projects between us. And if you have a few words for our board, I'd love to hear from you at this moment as well.
Thank you, Chairman Martinez, Vice Chair Smith-Fano, and members of the board. Very excited to be here today, but more excited even at the prospect of now working with all of our transportation partners to address these very complex transportation issues. The Miami-Dade MPO does have a long-range transportation plan and a transportation improvement program. If you look at all the components from all the different agencies, all of our transportation partners, we're really all working towards the same goal, which is to have a strong and vibrant transportation system for this county to meet the needs of the community, which in essence is a strong economy supported by a vibrant transportation system, to address congestion, and to provide choice. Those are the three most critical components that all of our agencies will be working together. So I look forward to working with your executive director, who has reached out to me since day one. This is actually my 4th week on the job. I really appreciate all of the opportunities I've had with your executive director and staff coming on board, making sure that we keep a global perspective on mobility. So again, thank you. I look forward to working with the board, with your executive director. Thank you very much.
Members of the board, staff, I think this is a clear indication of where we are going for the future. We have always worked very strongly with our partners at the state and federal level and at the local level. So, Secretary Pago, who has been in many ways someone I've learned a great deal from over the years, will indicate to that. The fact that we have such distinguished people coming to our board meetings and acknowledging that we are all going to work together. And I agree with Ms. Bravo and with Ms. Bouclé. This is a mobility issue. We need to find a way to improve. We are growing in such an exponential rate here in Miami-Dade County, and it's a wonderful thing. Why? We've got great weather. We don't have to deal with it. If you look at what's going on in the East Coast and in my hometown, Chicago, it's cold, it's winter. People want to live here. We are in an international city. And I agree with both these individuals. We need to improve and we need to look to the future. And I look forward, on behalf of myself and staff, to working with all of our partners in finding ways to improve our transportation. And I thank you both very much for taking time out of your very busy schedules for being with us today. Thank you very much, Ms. Bravo, and thank you very much today, Ms. Bouclé. All right. The next matter, Council, is, I believe, citizens' comments.
That's correct.
For those who intend to direct the board, could you please indicate who intends to speak to the board today? Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I count 11 people. Is that correct, Council?
Yes. You're counting? Yeah, I guess that's correct.
I might have missed one, 12. Okay. I understand that, I believe, unless I am incorrect, this is relating to the item that is already mentioned, I believe, item number, excuse my language, I want to make sure I get the right one. Is there anyone that wishes to speak on something other than item C?
Mr. Dotson.
Mr. Dotson. What I'm going to do then, Council, is I'm going to have Mr. Dotson speak first, and then we will have the members, since at the operations meeting, the members of MCM spoke first. We will have the members of Overbrecht's individuals speak on their behalf first, limiting them to each 3 minutes, and then the members of MCM will also have the opportunity to speak as well today. I believe, Council, is it 2 or 3 minutes?
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Not to exceed 30 minutes.
Okay, and not to exceed 30. So if you have, I think at 3 minutes per person, they should be fine. Ms. Secretary, if you can make sure that you give each individual speaking a warning at 1 minute and a warning at 30 seconds that their time is coming up. So, Mr. Dotson, since you are here first, I would allow you to speak on behalf first. On your matter, you have 3 minutes, and then we will go on to the other matters as I indicated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Al Dotson, and I represent CH2. I'm here to speak on item D on your agenda. It's related to an award associated with RFQ 16-02.
Mr. Dotson, if you could please indicate your address as well, please.
I'm with Bills in Sunburg, and my address is 1450 Brickell Avenue, Miami, Florida, 33131. The purpose of my presentation is a follow-up to a presentation I made at your last meeting. You may recall that I indicated a letter had been sent to staff and to this board related to CH2M's decision not to respond to RFQ 16-02. We indicated at that time that there was an ambiguity that we saw in the RFQ. We indicated in writing to staff that we had some questions about that ambiguity. Staff correctly reported to you that there were two sets of questions asked by CH2M, one prior to the deadline. We then got a response back after the deadline for submitting questions, and then we submitted a follow-up question after the deadline for submitting questions. Obviously, you can't know whether you have another question to ask based on the response you receive until you receive that response. You may know that this particular contract is going to be awarded to a single bidder, a sole source, and all CH2M wishes to share with you that if you do want competition in connection with that $50 million contract, we're prepared to provide you with reasons why in the appropriate form that we did not respond. And you may want to check with other engineering firms in the industry that also chose not to respond to this $50 million contract, so that you will know in the future how you can actually secure competition in a manner that does not tend to create either a misunderstanding about the particular requirements, or creates a process where when a question is answered, that if you have a follow-up, you're not then deemed too late because you had a follow-up question to an answer that was received. We appreciate the opportunity during citizens' comments to give you our view of this particular item, and we'll be here to answer any questions should they arise.
Thank you, Mr. Dotson. I appreciate you being here today. Thank you very much. Just to make sure, sir, I'm going to let you, any other comments that are not related to item that was discussed? C. No, any other, no, I know we're going to hear. I just want to make sure there's no other comments relating to something outside of item C. Hearing none, sir, no, yes. On item C, I've indicated that Overbeck will go first, and then you will have the opportunity to speak as well.
What I'm asking for is this.
Come to the, yes, sir, yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr.
My request is, if you please, to hear the matter right at the item instead of at the public speaking. I think that is part of the procurement rules say specifically that if one of the presenters would ask this request, it would be granted. I think it makes more logical sense, if I may.
The board policy is that all the comments are done here. It's silent on the committee to give the chairman of the committee flexibility.
Well, Mr. Williams, I'm going to allow everyone to speak, so I would like to do it now because we don't have that big of an agenda, so I will give you your opportunity to speak. Absolutely, I'm not going to deny any member of your team to have the opportunity to speak. However, we're going to do the comments now, and then we will have the vote later. Sir, again, I apologize for the interruption. Each individual will have 3 minutes. You will be given a warning at 1 minute, Ms. Secretary. Make sure we give them a heads up at 1 minute and at 30 seconds. Please, sir. And please state your name and your address as well.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Mauricio Gonzalez, Director of Construction for Oliver's USA, located at 201 Alhambra Circle, Coral Gables, Florida, 33134. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to address the board on the MDX 83629 project. I also like to thank you for the opportunity to partner with you on the MDX 83628 project along State Road 836, a project that's going well, that's going on schedule and according to plan, and in full cooperation with some of the other stakeholders here present, with FDOT, with Secretary Pego here present, with Miami-Dade Transportation, City of Miami, and many other agencies. With regards to the item 83629, with the item in the agenda 9C, the MDX 83629 project, I'd like to make a few points about it. First off is that MDX has established clear rules for the procurement process of the project. All the rest follow the rules. MCM did not. The invitation to bid, the pre-bid meeting attended by several of the MCM team members, and the existing procurement processes all provide clear instructions regarding the pre-qualification of the firms that need to be submitted at the time of the bid. MCM did not submit a pre-qualified ITS firm. Oliver's submitted a pre-qualified firm, Midasco. The second point is that the ITS work is a critical element of the scope of work on this project. As we heard during the Operations Committee last week, the work associated with the ITS deals with relocating the fiber optic backbone along State Road 836. Well, this backbone carries the tolling information for MDX, and therefore it needs to be performed by a pre-qualified company. The third item is that MCM did not meet the small business requirement established in the procurement process. By its own admission during last week's Operations Committee meeting, MCM listed MCO Construction with a $1.4 million package for fuel. While MCO is pre-qualified for other scopes of work, they themselves admitted here last week that they're not pre-qualified and they were not qualified at the time of bid for fuel. MCM's bid proposal doesn't meet the requirement of the procurement process, and as confirmed by the staff and by the consultants, should not be considered for award. On the other hand, Olibridge did follow the rules, and it's the lowest responsible bidder, and I may add, $2 million lower to MDX, and should be awarded the project. We look forward to working with you on this phenomenal project, the MDX 83629. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Moy. I'm with Moy O'Brien. My address is 4075 Scarlet Iris Place, Winter Park, Florida. Thank you for your time. This is a very odd situation. First, without procurement rules, you will have chaos. You will not be able to defend bid protests ever. Second, this is very odd. MCM at the Construction Committee meeting did something that we didn't expect. They came in and said, we did not follow the procurement rules. We admit that we did not. We know we were supposed to list an ITS subcontractor, but we did not. We know we were supposed to have MCO be certified with fuel as a minority, as an SBE, but they were not. Yes, they've done other work for you, but they were not certified in fuel. And they've said to you, please let me get this job even though I didn't do these things. Those are the points I want to make. On the second page of the document that you have in front of you, just so we can see how you arrange this, this was a pre-qualification bid as well as a price bid. And you said in the left-hand corner on pre-qualification, in order to be deemed responsive, bidders must meet the requirements in the pre-qualification. You go over to the right box and it says intelligent transportation systems is a pre-qualification requirement. And down in the left box at the bottom, it talks about the bidder must provide the substantiation. In the center's the key. You said to bidders, you shall not be considered if you don't satisfy these. You will not be deemed responsive. This bid cannot be considered because they didn't meet the pre-qualification requirements. Those can't be made up later. The next page, we don't have to really go through because they failed to do it. That's what's on the next page. If you're sticking with me, the final page on point 1, which looks like this, that's their sheet. This big circle here, they were supposed to put all their subcontractors in that they're relying on. They didn't put a single one in. Compare that to the other bidders. That's how abusive this is with respect to the procurement. Point 2, MCO, okay, is a company that they use for fuel. It's clear in this page that I've shown you here that at the time of the bid, they must be currently certified. Why is that important? If they're not certified for fuel, MCO that is, our client Odebrecht won't go get a price from them for fuel because they're not certified. That's why MCM can't put the price in for fuel and then later say to you, I want to use it. And on the next page, that's what they did. MCO Construction, $1.4 million. These are not insignificant issues, but I want to go to, that's a requirement, go to the next to the last page in this package. Excuse me?
Your time is up.
I didn't hear the minute. Did you say a minute?
I'm sorry, I didn't. It did beep, though. I was distributing a...
Could I have one more minute, please? They have 7 people. I'm the last one of ours.
Well, I'll give you 1 minute in reference that one of the other people only have 2 minutes instead of 3, if that's
Can't do that,
acceptable.
Louis.
We don't have anyone else.
Louis, you can't.
That's it? Nope, I can't. No, it's only
Yeah,
3
you
minutes.
can't
I'm sorry.
cede to
Can't
somebody
cede?
else.
I apologize.
I did not hear the 1 minute warning that we're supposed to have.
minute.
No, it's okay.
Okay, thank you. The next to the last page, and I'll be quick.
Please.
This is a case in Florida that says what happens if a subcontractor is not listed. And it says the unfair bidding advantage one contractor derives from the failure to list required subcontractors is threefold. 1, you miss precious few minutes at the bid day because you're filling out forms. 2, it's a phantom price and efforts to shop that item or trade will happen. And 3, accept additional subcontractor bids afterwards. That's why there's a competitive advantage here. And the last point that I will make is it's in your sole and absolute discretion as to whether to waive these. In this Bell South Communications case, it says an agency is not required to waive even a minor irregularity in a bid or proposal, even if it has the power to do so. And as the court said about the last MCM protest that you awarded to Odebrecht, the court said, to read it your way, MCM, it results in something that would even common sense would say is absurd. It results in an absurd result or an absurd interpretation. That's what the court said about their last protest. We suggest to you that Odebrecht should get this. They played by the rules. Thank you for giving me the additional time.
And Mr. Munilla, if one of your individuals goes over the 3 minutes, I'll give him 1 additional minute as well, to be fair.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else speaking on behalf of Odebrecht Council? Council? Is there anyone else speaking on behalf of your position, sir?
No, thank you.
I just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Mr. Munilla, you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Have you passed out the...
Yes, we did.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'm Pedro Munilla. I reside at 7277 Sunset Drive. MCM's bid is $3+ million lower than Odebrecht and finishes the project 7+ months sooner than Odebrecht. It is clearly in the best interest of MDX to award to MCM. MCM is not asking for any material deviation that would give it any kind of competitive advantage. we are requesting MDX simply be consistent with past practices and allow MCM to cure 2 mere minor irregularities. The bids on this project were opened over 2 months ago. MDX procurement waited until 1 working day before the Operations Committee last week to advise it found MCM non-responsive for 2 reasons. Number 1, not including a form regarding the ITS subcontractor which is performing a mere 1.6% of the contract. We have proven the form had been in MCM's possession at the time it submitted its bid, and there is no logical reason for not including other than a clerical error. Nothing to be gained. Number 2, MCM did not provide an SBD-approved subcontractor to perform the scope of work for which it was approved. We have since requested you permit MCO to subcontract steel and concrete structures for which MCO has been certified for a number of years. There is no way that permitting a minority subcontractor that was listed in the MCM team to perform a different scope would be deemed a competitive advantage. Today, we will show you that MDX Procurement Department has consistently found these matters immaterial, permitted a cure, and recommended that you waive as minor irregularities. The difference here, and quite frankly, we find it unconscionable, is that in the past, prior to making the recommendation to the Operations Committee, the Procurement Department permitted the bidders to clarify the errors and thereafter asked the committee to waive the minor irregularities. As you know, MCM filed a protest of the Operations Committee recommendation, which was not accepted, and sought an injunction to award to Orderbeck. We have done this out of pure frustration. Unlike every other agency in the state of Florida, MDX does not permit a contractor to file a protest before an award. This is quite frustrating because the contractor has no access to an impartial party to decide who's right. There is plenty of time to permit the vetting of these issues. MDX estimated this project to take 1,450 days. MCM is doing it 585, less, almost a third. We ask you to do the right thing and award the project to MCM. If not, at the very least, we ask that you require the parties to try to mediate the matter prior to making the award. We were given 1 day to explain the irregularities. That is simply not fair. Thank you.
You know what, Mr. Rea, just for the record, you used up your extra 1 minute. And, you went over 1 minute, I believe, or were you at 3? Is he good?
He did 3.
I apologize. We're good.
Not a problem.
So you still have a minute extra somewhere.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. My name is Robert Murphy. I am the Director of Civil Operations for MCM. The address is 6201 Southwest 70th Street, Miami. In last week's operations meeting, the committee asked some very good questions to its staff. In particular, they asked, what is a minor irregularity? Ms. Gutierrez explained it doesn't matter whether it's minor or not because it was required. But this is not the case. Unfortunately, staff failed to show you Article 19 of the ITB, entitled Responsiveness, Disqualification, and Waivers. I'd like to show you in the slides, in the next few slides, the language, the specific language of Article 19. As you can see, Article 19 provides, first, 19.1 general. It states, MDX, at its sole and absolute discretion, reserves the right to waive irregularities in the bid package. 19.2, responsiveness of bid package. It states, a bid may be found non-responsive for reasons including but not limited to, among others, but specifically, B, bid packages requiring changes, bid packages failing to comply with the pre-qualification criteria, E, failure to include required information and documentation. You can characterize the ITS issue and the small business issue with MCM's bid as minor irregularities by any of these categories. Third, we move on to material deviations, section 19.3, disqualification of bidders. It states, conditions which shall cause disqualification of the bid package include deviations such as, among others, but specifically D, falsification of any part of the administrative package or any forms documentation required by MDX. MCM has no material deviations in its bid. Finally, section 19.4 waivers defines minor irregularities that can be waived. It states, minor irregularities are defined as those that will not have an adverse effect on MDX's interest and will not materially affect the bid by giving a bidder an advantage or a benefit not enjoyed by other bidders. MDCM's bid does not have or adverse effect to MDX interest, but in fact brings greater value to MDX, including finishing the project 7 months earlier, and $3 million less expensive than the next bidder. Likewise, MDX waiver MCM minor irregularities does not provide a benefit not enjoyed by any other bidder. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Thank you, Chairman Martinez and members of the board. My name is Elliot Press, and I am MCM's Federal Operations Program Manager. Our address is 6201 Southwest 70th Street, Miami, Florida, 33143. Now that we've reviewed the rules regarding waiving minor irregularities, the consideration to do so is based on two distinct questions. Number one, would waiving the irregularity have an adverse effect on MDX? And number two, will the waiver materially affect the bid by giving the bidder an advantage or benefit not enjoyed by other bidders? Now, Odebrecht just minutes ago was granted a waiver of an irregularity because it benefited the greater good. The minor irregularity, similar to what we're talking about here, is what we're looking at for the board and the staff's approval. Addressing number one, on whether there would be an adverse effect on MDX, the answer is clearly no. As a matter of fact, awarding the project to MCM has the most positive effect on MDX because MCM was the highest ranked bidder and will finish the project some 7.5 months faster than Odebrecht. As a local minority-owned company, we know the great impact of fast-tracking such an important construction project, such as MDX 83629. And similarly, as our distinguished guest just shared with us, Ms. Bravo said that the number one mission is mobility, and Ms. Bouclé stated that a critical component is meeting the needs of the community. MCM does that faster, and you'll get the same great product, but even better with MCM because we were the highest ranked, and we're going to do it 7.5 months earlier. Now comes question number two. Would waiving the minor irregularities give MCM an unfair advantage or benefit? It's clear that the answer to this question is also no. Let me show you what was missing in response to MCM's bid package. You're looking at it in front of you. This one simple form indicating ION would be our ITS subcontractor. Now, no one is saying that our subcontractor is not going to be qualified to do this work. What we're saying is that they were qualified, but a clerical error left it out. As evidenced by this email, it was sent to MCM by ION before we submitted our bid package, and as a result of the unfortunate clerical error, it was not in our bid. This is further supported by the affidavit of Robert Murphy filed with MDX. Not only is this a minor issue to explain, but it's also less than 1.6% of the project, clearly not a substantiating portion in terms of percentage. Anyone performing this work must use an ITS certified subcontractor. That's not the question. It's also important to note that MCM gained no advantage by not submitting the ITS subcontractor's name. The solicitation documents clearly state in part at section 9.2.2 that any portion of the administration package that is not submitted shall not relieve the bidder from the intended requirement. MCM was never looking to be relieved of the ITS certification requirement and will be happy to meet all aspects of the intended requirement. At the last MDX Operations Committee meeting, Odebrecht expressed concern of MCM bid shopping as it relates to ITS, but they're clearly grasping at straws, trying to create a notion of unfairness when in reality there's no unfair advantage. Don't fall into this misrepresentation. MCM committed and remains committed to using ION as our ITS subcontractor. The one missing form was a clerical issue. Moreover, when you consider the fact that Odebrecht listed 2 ITS subcontractors in his package, clearly we're not the ones who are set up for bid shopping. But you don't have to take our word for it. The 1 minute, please. Chairman. You get the he gets the minute.
But you don't have to take our word for it. As your procurement manager, Ms. Helen Cordero, already stated at the MDX meeting in relation to the ITS bid shopping issue on January 20th, I quote, "That's basically an assumption. It's not anything we can point out to or that the agency can opine on." At the same meeting, the board asked its staff whether MDX had any precedents of waiving matters like this in the past, and MDX's staff advised that they didn't. However, after performing some Google searches, we found that in fact it is common practice for MDX to waive matters like this, and MDX staff has provided bidders opportunities to cure minor irregularities well before making recommendations to the board. However, as you heard just earlier, in this case it didn't happen. MCM, we submitted our bid on November 13th, and not until months later, and only 1 day prior to staff's recommendation, were we notified about a minor irregularity without any chance to explain.
You'll hear from MCM discussing some of these specific examples in further detail, but the minor irregularities can and should be waived so that the project can be awarded to the lowest ranked bidder, MCM, which will provide the greatest benefit to MDX, all visitors to the area, and our entire community. Thank you for the time and the extra time.
Thank you. Mr. Moya, your team used up its 1 minute.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Chairman Martinez and Board. My name's Eduardo Martinez with MCM. I reside at 9401 Southwest 38th Street here in Miami. If I can please get you to go to page number 9 right now. I'm going to go over some brief examples of past projects and past board meetings where this same operation board and MDX staff reviewed the minor irregularities and they were waived. In this board meeting in 2015, the operations committee and the same MDX staff provided a compliance responsive review for all the proposals and found that the proposals submitted by this particular contractor, SEMA, contained minor irregularities to the point that they were missing certifications and proof of certain trainings. In that particular example, the MDX staff recommended to the board to waive the minor irregularities. Moving along to page 10, another example where the staff found 5 proposals contained minor irregularities, incorrect or non-completed submittal forms in the administrative package. In this case, they contacted all 5 contractors, asked them for the forms, and the staff made a recommendation, and I repeat, recommended, and quote, consistent with similar prior procedures, MDX took the necessary steps to allow proposals to remedy the minor irregularities. So once again, they were fixed, a recommendation was made to this committee, and the minor irregularities were waived. And all these examples that you see in the following pages, and I can go on and on, every single example that I have here, and there are many, the minor irregularities were waived. And what does all this have in common? MDX staff reviewed the bid, found the minor irregularities, and contacted the contractors, and ultimately made recommendations to the operations committee to waive them. Why not now? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
My name is Ann McNeil.
Ms. McNeil, how was your flight?
Pardon me?
The flight you took last week, did it go okay?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so very much.
Oh, I'm glad. I wasn't sure where you were traveling. I was just concerned that maybe you had to go to the East Coast or something.
My minute did not start yet.
Absolutely not. That did not die.
Sure.
Absolutely not. That was simply moving. That was simply moving courteous. Her minute starts when she begins to speak. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Ann McNeil, and my address is 6600 Northwest 27th Avenue, Miami, Florida, Suite 208, 33147. I am the president and owner of MCO Construction and have been certified as a minority business for over 30 years. MCM has contracted for my services, including as an SBE on numerous projects for numerous years. I am qualified to perform a whole list of services under the SBD program. I have provided you the list in an affidavit. I have had the small business certification for fuel since July 2013 and have performed the fueling contract on several projects, and this is relating to prior work. At the time MCO bid the subject project to MCM, we discussed the possibility of subcontracting several other scopes of work, including to furnish and install structural steel and precast concrete. However, at that time, I was under the mistaken impression that MCO was approved to provide the fuel services by SBD of Miami-Dade County, and that was the initial scope of MCO contract for the project. After the submission of the bid, my bid to MCM, during one of my visits to SBD, I was advised that even though MCO had a small business enterprise certification for fuel, that the approval for such scope was not included in Miami-Dade County SBD list, and was suggested that certification be added. Following a suggestion, the SBD immediately added the fuel to my certification. Under the Miami-Dade County SBD program, the providing of fuel falls under heading Industrial Services, not otherwise classified. Sometimes,
1 minute.
thank you. Sometimes thereafter, I was told that MDX could not locate the NIGP code for providing fuel, that once SBD clarified it fell under the Industrial Services, it was okay to provide the fuel for that project. This is why I was very much surprised when I read that MDX finding was that I was not accepted or approved to provide that. I am informed by MDX has accepted such additions of scopes post-bid opening on numerous occasions. Notwithstanding the above, in an effort to remedy my initial mistaken impression, MCM has agreed to modify the scope initially negotiated by me to furnish and install structural steel and precast concrete for the same amount, for which MCO has been certified for a number of years. In closing, I'd like to say that MCM is a local contractor that I've worked hand in hand for many years as a small business, and continues to be mentored and assisted, including this opportunity. Okay, thank you so very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Ms. McNeil.
Mr. Chair, the board, good afternoon. My name is Eric Valderrama. I'm with MCM at 6201 Southwest 70th Street, Miami, Florida, 33143. Mr. Chair, MCO is one of our SBD subcontractors. If MCO is not accepted as our fuel contractor, then they should be accepted as a subcontractor nonetheless for the scopes that they were certified to perform SBD work prior to the bid. We listed MCO for fuel because advised by Ms. Ann McNeil that she was qualified for that trade. As it turns out, even though she is qualified to subcontract the fuel scope, it's primarily for South Water Management and not for Miami-Dade County. We have asked procurement to substitute the fuel category with an alternate classification to furnish and install structural steel and precast concrete for the amount close to $2 million, for which MCO has been certified for a number of years, and it's a scope of which MCM usually self-performs. Now, MDX's concern is for the contractor to use SBD for a certain percentage of the contract. Without MCO, we already have a 12.5% of SBE goals, and with MCO, we exceed the 15% goal. So now the issue should be whether the listed SBD sub, in this case, if MCO is a certified SBD for the stated scope of work prior to the bid. And as of today, and prior to the bid, MCO is qualified as an SBE to perform the work. On a particular note, with respect to the alleged small business irregularity, I'd like you to look up at the screen. At the Operations Committee meeting on August 18th for ITB 1503, and I quote, Ms. Cordero explained that the bid proposals from H&J Asphalt and H&R Paving had conflicting information regarding compliance with the small business participation requirement. Upon request for clarification, I repeat, upon request for clarification, both firms confirmed that the inability to meet the required 50% small business goal requirement. So at the end of the day, they were deemed non-compliant and non-responsive because they couldn't reach their 50%. But again, I note, upon request for clarification, MDX followed its prior practice and procedure by giving the low bidder the opportunity to cure their small business minor irregularity. Only when the contractors were unable to meet their requirement, they were disqualified. So how can you tell the staff at MCO that you don't have a particular fueling certification is material deviation when in previous bids, staff previously gave bidders the opportunity to clarify their small business percentages? That doesn't seem fair, equitable, and consistent with the previous decisions allowing opportunities to cure. Remember, the purpose of Miami-Dade's MDX's small business policy is to promote Miami-Dade County economy by ensuring utilization of small businesses, and moreover, it shall be construed liberally and applied to promote its underlying purposes and policy. Per Article 19 of the RTB, as long as it's determined by the best interest of the MDX, no bidder should be conferred a competitive advantage.
Sir,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Mayer. I'm General Counsel for MCM.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon. Mr. Rodriguez, you stated during last week's meeting that it is your desire to have consistency in your procurements. You just heard about many minor irregularities that MDX waived in the past. It is evident that MDX prior practice is to waive minor irregularities such as the ones discussed today by MCM. And we are all aware of the litigation that's going on between us on the 836-28 project, where MDX staff found Odebrecht's responsive despite our efforts to explain why they weren't. In particular, we explained that Odebrecht's failure to comply with Section 9.1 pre-qualification criteria should have caused them to be non-responsive, but your staff didn't raise that concern to this board. Just to be clear, as you can see on the board, that procurement stated SOQ shall not be considered from proposals that do not satisfy at a minimum the following pre-qualification criteria. Among other things, it required 3 years of specific project manager experience. It also says, should MDX not be able to verify proposers' compliance with the pre-qualification criteria, the proposal shall be deemed non-responsive. Now, that is eerily similar to Section 9.1 pre-qualification criteria in the instant matter. In the previous procurement, as soon as we received Odebrecht's proposal, we protested on the basis that Odebrecht's project manager did not meet the requisite pre-qualification criteria. Odebrecht represented by the submission of 5 different forms that Mauricio Gonzalez had the requisite experience. After a review of some of its evidence, he didn't have it. Odebrecht represented that he started working on the SRA 36 project in September 2012, when that project didn't start as evidenced by its notice to proceed until December 2012. That's 3 extra months. Odebrecht represented that he started working on the I-95 project in March 2010, when that project didn't start as evidenced by its notice to proceed until May 2012. That's 2 extra months. Additionally, Odebrecht represented that it worked on your very own MDX 836-22 project through December 2011, when that project as evidenced by the final acceptance letter signed by your very own Juan Toledo in July 2011. That's 5 extra months. This one is actually way more egregious than the rest. As you can see, this form is designed by anyone to avoid a violation of the Code of Silence, per your policy. As such, it specifically required MDX staff to perform an internal verification. A simple verification would have shown that there was a misrepresentation by Odebrecht, but surprise, it wasn't verified, and instead of being disqualified, they got a 10% bonus. You would think that that's the kicker. It isn't. 2 of the projects he claimed experience for were MCM projects, and he was not the project manager for either of the projects. I doubt he even visited the jobs more than a handful of times. You look at the difference of how your staff treated the last procurement compared to this procurement, and you consider that our competitor's leader is sitting in jail in Brazil for corruption and bribery. Can you tell me that there's no appearance of impropriety or favoritism? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and Board. First, I'm going to be giving up a minute because I'm not going to take the 3. This, I feel, you know, we've been in Miami. We've been in business here for 30.
Sir, please state your name and your address first.
Boy, I did that last time. I must not want to let everybody know where I live. But I'll, 6030 Southwest 114th Street, Miami, Florida, 33156. Juan Munilla. Yeah. I'm a principal with MCM. I wanted to start by saying that, first of all, we have had the pleasure of working with the MDX group, the DOT. We know many of you here for many years. We've been incorporated in Miami for, we're going on our 33rd year.
So I want to let you know that we do not have any enjoyment being in front of you here today to talk about these instances. We'd rather be talking about something much more productive. However, we also don't want to be treated differently because we were exercising our rights on the 836-28 project, which I think has tainted some of the relationship that we hope that, God willing, we can rebuild. You have heard from Odebrecht that failure to submit the pre-qualification would disqualify the bidder. This is simply not the case. I think you've seen enough on the board. What you do not hear is that you have the ultimate right to waive any minor irregularity. There's 5 components that let you disqualify a bidder, and you must disqualify it. Outside of that, it is up to this board and its discretion. We are 220 days earlier than Odebrecht. The pointed structure gives us a $4 million advantage. MCM did not receive a benefit or an advantage over any other bidder. That is simply false. We did not receive it. We had the document. We used the document. The subcontractor can be changed at any time. It's not significant. We did not submit an executed contract or a commitment that would be the price and the award to that contractor.
1 minute.
But for our existing situation, because I don't like to use any other word, situation on 836-28, I am quite confident that these items would have been deemed minor irregularities. And I truly hope that you can look past this and award the contract to MCM. And I thank you all for your time, and hopefully we will all be working together again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Munilla.
Good afternoon. My name is Alfredo Armas. I have been retained by MCM to pursue a bid protest. Hopefully, my services will not be required. My office is at 4960 Southwest 72nd Avenue.
Good afternoon, Counsel.
I just want to inform the board that minutes prior to this meeting, we did have a hearing before Judge Rodriguez. Judge Rodriguez ruled that MDX may proceed with its board meeting as currently scheduled. However, nothing that occurs at that board meeting shall prejudice MCM's rights to its verified motion for temporary injunction or any of the other parties' rights. Just wanted to inform the board of that. One more thing I do want to say is I was sitting here in the audience. I saw Mr. Moye orating and saying rules are rules, and I believe at one time he even pounded on the lectern. I find it ironic that Mr. Moye went over his allotted 3 minutes, which is the rule. And he said, I didn't hear the announcement that my time was up, the warning, the 1 minute warning, and this board equitably and fairly said, it's a minor irregularity. We're going to waive it. We're going to give you the additional minute. We understand. We understand.
I also think, Counsel, I also then gave your side.
I agree. An extremely Solomonic solution. But that's what we do. That's what we do because money is at stake, significant funds, significant time. I drive these expressways. To tell me that somebody's going to build the expressway and get out and allow me to use unfettered access 7.5 months earlier is very significant. Thank you, Board. Please exercise your discretion, waive these minor irregularities. They are not significant. Nobody is asking to use an unqualified subcontractor. All they're saying is, we didn't get the piece of paper saying they were qualified, even though everybody now knows that they are indeed qualified. As a matter of fact, it's the same subcontractor that Odebrecht had submitted. Thank you very much.
Counsel. Further public comment? Going once, going twice. I deem that all public comments have been satisfied on all matters. Public comments is now closed. Council, we have a unique situation. I understand we have to have a shade meeting, and our attorneys are here. It was supposed to be at 5. I will ask if we can determine if they wish to move forward with the agenda first, if the board wishes to go forward with the agenda, or should we do the shade meeting at 5 o'clock with our attorneys as we indicated? Huh? Stick to the agenda? Okay, let's do that. Very well then. Thank you. Item number 2, please, Council.
Where are we? Approval of summary minutes.
Moved by Vice Chair Fano, seconded by Ancio. Any discussion? Hearing none, discussion closed. Any opposition? Hearing no opposition, item passes unanimously. Item 3, the Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members, members of the public. I'm going to make my report brief in the sake of time. First thing I do want to update the board is our strategic master plan. Since our last meeting, December 8th, we've had presentations to the Florida Department of Transportation. As you heard earlier, the MPO director, the MPO subcommittees, the MDT director, Alice Bravo, and we briefed Chair Martinez and Board Member Ferre on the progress. We're at a position now with our strategic master plan that we're ready to bring it to the board for a workshop, and as we discussed in our earlier committee meeting, we're going to schedule a workshop to discuss the findings. In addition, because there are so many requests for presentation of our strategic master plan, and at the request of the committee chair, Meyer, we're going to develop a calendar for board members that state where we are and who we're presenting to, and we'll encourage board members to participate and be aware of those meetings. Since our last board meeting, I also participated at the Florida Chamber of Commerce Transportation Summit. Mr. Ferre and I participated. I was on a panel, and we discussed our mobility approach. As Director Bravo stated, we're all singing from the same song sheet. This is about mobility. This is about moving people and goods safely. And it was a very dynamic discussion in Tallahassee, in Jacksonville, actually. And I discussed our strategic plan and the effects of technology on management of congestion. Chair Martinez and I briefed the Miami Herald editorial board on December 16th. We spent about an hour and a half with the editorial board. They reported one sentence, but we did explain a lot of our program. We continue to coordinate our projects and provide the capability of using express buses on both 874 and 878 to the Dadeland Transit Station. We've met with Commissioner Moss to update him, along with the Florida Department of Transportation, Florida Turnpike Enterprise, Miami-Dade County. The idea is to connect our hubs, one of the hubs being the Dadeland Transit Station. Another hub would be one close to the Executive Airport or the Miami Airport in Southwest Dade. As I updated the committee at the Intergovernmental, there's a number of bills that affect transportation. I'm not going to go into every single one of them. I believe everyone here attended the Intergovernmental, but I'll be more than happy to discuss them with all of you. And that concludes my report for now.
Does anyone from the board have any questions for Mr. Walters?
Javier, on the bus lanes on the MDX roads, great idea. Is there any, and maybe this is for Secretary Pago, is there any concept in moving at the state along this vein, doing the same thing on 95 and the Palmetto? Is that possible, or is it?
Mr. Secretary, actually.
Good question. Where there's capacity constraints, we can certainly look at that opportunity to relieve that bottleneck. But I look towards the bigger vision of delivering a network of managed lanes so that we have the footprint not only to move people and goods, but also to provide choices in our community through express lanes and provide that bus rapid transit platform on our facilities. So rather have them in a lane, shoulders can be used when you have a constrained environment.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none. Next item, General Counsel report.
Happy New Year, everyone. The first one, ETCC litigation, we have the SHADE meeting today. Second one, this afternoon, I was emailed a complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief by MCM on matter C. At 3 o'clock, when we were having the intergovernmental meeting, I was called into a conference call with representatives of MCM, Odebrecht, and ourselves. And we had outside counsel online, and we agreed. And what happened, it wasn't a judge ruling, actually agreed, and I could read it to you. The court reserves the ruling on MCM's emergency verified motion for temporary injunction. The MDX may proceed with its board meeting as currently scheduled. However, nothing that occurs at this board meeting shall prejudice MCM's rights to its emergency verified motion for temporary injunction or any other party's rights. So basically, that's in line with our procurement policy. So we have not been prejudiced in any way by that agreed motion.
Very good. Anything further? Any questions to our General Counsel? Hearing no questions, we move on. MPO Representative Report. Mayor Fleury, Happy
Chairman,
New Year.
Thank you, sir. In the interest of time, I would like to request that my memorandum of January 25th be incorporated as my report into the minutes.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
I would only add, just very briefly, if I may, I've also asked to pass out a copy of a statement by the CEO chairman of Volvo. It says Volvo's 202 pledge, no one will die in our cars by the 2020. Here's the point. Technology, it's here. We have disruptive change that's affecting the MPO. It's going to affect MDX. It's going to affect FDOT. It's going to affect everyone. And I think we really need to be keenly aware. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And as I indicated initially, I've asked that the memorandum email that you presented will be sent to the intergovernmental and policy. Thank you. Treasurer's report, Mr. Rodriguez-Pina, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone, for being here. Happy New Year to everyone. We don't have a report to give you today, so we will have one for you in February. We're compiling the necessary data, and we'll have one for you. Maria, I don't know if you want to add anything to that other than everything seems to be online. We know we're on top of everything, and we are definitely consistent with our projected income and revenues, and no anomalies that we're facing, and no concerns of any threats or any liabilities that are unforeseen.
That's in. Do we have any?
I would like to say something, actually,
Please.
now that it was brought up. We did open up the cashback dividend program for signing up as of January 11th, I believe it was. And we've had a significant number of people sign up or reconfirm their information. So for those of you listening or watching, please go on the website, mdxway.com, and reconfirm your information or apply for the cashback dividend.
If I may, sorry, Mr. Rodriguez, if I may, can we have an update of where we're at the next board meeting and the amount of people that have signed up?
Sure, we will do that.
If that's acceptable with Ms. Fenton.
Mr. Chairman?
Of course, Mr. Rodriguez.
Since the question has been raised, one thing that I think is to be noted, that 95% of the checks that were sent around the holidays have been cashed. So we were very effective in delivering those checks to the people that deserve it. So I think that's very significant, and we're working on the remaining 5% too. So I just wanted to know, I think that's worth mentioning to the board.
That's excellent news. So that's important to note, that 95% of the 38,000 plus checks that were sent out have been cashed. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Congratulations to staff and to our treasurer for being on top of that. Thank you very much, Mr. Rodriguez-Pina.
Thank you.
Mr. Director, if it's acceptable to you, the committee reports, I believe, are intertwined with our action items. I'd like to just go straight to those, if that's acceptable. Yes, first we have to do the consent agenda with only one issue. Council, please.
Yeah, consent agenda A, approval, February 9th, 10th, 2016, trip to Orlando, Florida by Executive Director Rodriguez to attend the Florida Transportation Builders Construction Conference.
All in favor? Aye. Hearing no opposition? Excellent. Regular agenda, council, please, with A.
Okay, item A on the regular agenda, MDX work program number 83611, State Road 836 I-95 interchange improvements, endorsed by the Operations Committee on January 20, 2016. Approval of eminent domain parcels, resolution 16-01 through 16-12. Do you want me to read B? Two, because we did this in the ops.
Do them together, and then we'll make motions on each one separately. But yes.
Okay. MDX work program, 83628, State Road 836 operational capacity interchange improvements, endorsed by the Operations Committee on January 20th, 2016. Approval of eminent domain parcels, resolutions 16-13 through 16-19.
Very good. Anyone, what we'll do is I will ask for a joint movement and a joint second, but then we will hear on each item and vote on them independently. Anyone wish to move the items? Moved by Mayor Frey, seconded by Vice Chair Shalifano. Both items are now open for discussion. Mr. Director, who is going to be speaking on staff on this matter?
As we did at Operations Committee, Mr. Toledo is ready to discuss these. There was a thorough discussion at Operations Committee.
There was, and for the record, there was a significant percentage of all board members at the Operations Committee. Mr. Toledo, good afternoon and Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to the board members. Good afternoon. Basically, these are the partial resolutions required for us to begin the negotiation on partial acquisition for the respective projects. Upon approval, we'll start the negotiations. If those were to fail, then we'd go into eminent domain. But this is consistent with our property acquisitions policy.
It's already been moved, already second. Any discussion? Hearing none discussion, discussion is closed. I'd ask the items to be called individually. So let's start with item 9A. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, item passes unanimously. Now, item 9B. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, item passes unanimously. Action item C, please, council.
MDX procurement contract number ITB 16-01, MDX work program number 83629.060, construction services for State Road 836, interchange modifications at 87th Avenue, $65,759,276, endorsed by the Operations Committee on January 20, 2016. Approval of contract award to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder.
Mr. Rodriguez, who will be presenting for staff?
Ms. Cordero will walk us through this item.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, sir. The requested action is to approve the contract award to the lowest responsible bidder. We received 8 bids in response to the invitation to bid that was released by MDX on September 15th. The 8 bidders were Astardi Construction Corporation, Community Asphalt, Condote America, Fashina Construction, Halley Engineering Contractors, Munilla Construction Management, Autobreak Construction, and Prince Contracting. The bid was released as an A+B, which included both the price as well as timing in the selection. Only the top 5 bidders were evaluated for responsiveness and compliance review, as the remaining 3 were, the prices were way higher than our engineer's estimate. So the 5 bidders that were evaluated for compliance and responsiveness were Munilla Construction, Autobreak Construction, Astardi Construction, Halley Engineering, and Condote America. Upon completion of compliance review, it was determined that 3 of the bidders did not meet one of the pre-qualification criteria related to being pre-qualified with FDOT under the Rule 1422 of the Florida Administrative Code for Intelligent Transportation System. Those 3 bidders were MCM, Astaldi, and Condote. Neither 3 of them had anyone in their team who had that required pre-qualification. In addition, the bid submitted by MCM, one of their small business was not pre-qualified under the small business program for the services for which they were being proposed. All of these issues were addressed before the Operations Committee, and you heard discussions today from the bidders as well. Also, since the contract time was a component of the selection, we had the GECs, both A and B, do independent analysis of the schedules and the proposed contract time to ensure that, in fact, since the times were so aggressive, that, in fact, the project could be completed in the proposed contract time. And both of the GECs concluded that, in fact, although the schedules were aggressive, they could be the project could be completed within those proposed contract time as long as the appropriate resources were committed to the project. Out of the 5 proposals that were evaluated, only 2 were responsive at this point, which were Autobrek and Halley Construction. Autobrek was the second lowest bidder. Therefore, staff's recommendation today is that the award be to Autobrek. At the Operations Committee, staff recommended that the 3 non-responsive proposals be deemed non-responsive, and the committee did approve that. So that's already an action taken by the Operations Committee. You have correspondence in your packages that was submitted by NCM in response to our recommendation to deem them non-responsive, as well as our recommendation to award to the second lowest bidder, which is responsive lowest bidder, which is Autobrek. You heard some of the discussions and their points of contention today. Staff's recommendation remains the same as what's in your package. They did submit, they did file for an injunction for the project, and you heard their attorney explain what the motion from the judge has been thus far. Any questions?
I also believe they filed an official protest as well, counsel, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, make sure we get that on the record as well.
Thank you.
Before we get to questions, does anyone wish to move the item so we can get to discussion? Moved, seconded by Mr. Cancio. Now we're open for discussion. We will start with Mr. Walters, Mr. Vasquez, and then Mr. Meyer, in that order.
I couldn't make the Operations Committee last week.
Understood.
First meeting I've missed since I've been appointed. But could somebody just clarify for me the difference between this not being accepted, this discrepancy not being accepted, and the ones that were listed before that were? What makes this different than those?
Yes, Mr. Vasquez.
I would like to get, I think we should be advised by I heard something about a lawsuit being filed. And before we ask any questions or make any comments, I think we should be advised by our legal counsel as what implications there may be.
Absolutely.
Okay. Counsel?
Well, anything that we say here can be used, as they say, against us. I was prepared to address all their allegations in the January 20th letter, but I think after consulting with the chairman, it would be in MDX's best interest to not go point by point. I can tell you that last Wednesday, I was asked to provide a legal opinion on the matter, and I recommended that we follow the staff's recommendation and deem the 3 vendors non-responsive and award the lowest lowest responsive and responsible bidder. I've reviewed all the information again, including the letter sent by MCM, and my opinion has not changed at all. We received this late this afternoon, and I reviewed it. The bulk of the complaint, it was contained in the January 20th letter. I can tell you that my opinion is that no pre-qualification that goes through an evaluation criteria is a minor irregularity.
Okay. Mr. Walters, what I suggest is we will try to answer the questions that you have to the best of our ability within the discretion of the fact that there is a pending litigation. So ask your question again. Or did he assist in answering what it was in the general sense? Okay. Anything else? Mr. Vasquez.
I just, for the record, want to clarify my comment. I heard insinuations today about that and allegations that our actions are obviously based on harsh feelings or whatever from the past, and I hate to hear stuff like that. And I was prepared to make some comments and ask questions, but to be perfectly honest with you, I think it behooves this board, and I would encourage the rest of my board members that we at this time, based on the actions taken, have to reserve comment. And I want MCM to hear this because, I think this is a very fair group of people up here. We put a lot of time into this hard work. We don't get paid for this. We're very passionate and very proud of what we do. And it's very difficult to hear that. And I was prepared to ask some interesting questions today that I think would have addressed and perhaps explained some of our actions. But I want to say that for the record because, when you, all kinds of conclusions can be drawn from questions that are asked, and I think it put us in a very difficult position. So for that reason, again, I would just caution my fellow board members moving forward now that there's a lawsuit pending.
Well, Mr. Vasquez, the truth is in the pudding. So whatever questions we ask, I'm comfortable with staff making their position known because it's not going to be a secret. We're going to deal with it in the future as well, one way or the other. So, and the operation meeting was thoroughly vetted. Overwhelming majority of this information was dealt with. So, Mr. Meyer, if you have any questions, go right ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question, and actually it's the same question I asked during the Operations Committee meeting, because there was a comment made about Ion Electric and them being, or at least on page 6 of MCM's sheet, it looks like this was a document that was submitted along with their bid package. And I recall your answer at the Operations Committee, but I want to state it again, this question on the record. Was Ion Electric, as a subcontractor, submitted with the MCM bid package on the due date?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
I'll finish this side first, and then I'll come over here, Mr. Ferre. Secretary Pago, any questions?
Well, my questions were answered at the operations meeting.
Very good. Vice Chair Final, I'll reserve you until the end. On this side, Mr. Cancio.
I was in the operation meeting the other day. I am not a member of the committee. I say that I know, both companies. I know the Odebrecht company from Brazil. When I was a general manager of a company that we supply the concrete for the international airport, for the Petrobras building. We did some job here in Miami-Dade County. I know the Munilla family for many years as a donor of some of the business here at the Museum of the Brigade, the Cuban Memorial. But looking today, some of the issue that, the Munilla family came here, saying that, that we have been override some minor, and also that they are able, to do the job in 210 days less and with less money. Really, I know how I'm going to vote, but, I want that the people know that, to me and to Miami-Dade County people, the user of the toll road, 210 days less and some less money, to me matters. Okay, thank you, sir.
And thank you very much, Mr. Cancio. Mayor Ferre.
Mr. Chairman, I also was at the operations meeting, even though I'm not a member, and you permitted me, or the chair permitted me, to ask some questions. Some of those questions I think were referred to today. So I have to ask the executive director whether he in any way has been swayed or changed his position with what he's heard today.
No, sir. My position is the same.
We've already heard from Helen, and council, you have not changed your recommendation.
No.
Yeah, so it's my conclusion, therefore, Mr. Chairman, that I don't think this board really has any choice but to follow the recommendation of staff. And we're certainly not, we heard from 9 representatives of Mr. Monilla's and 2 from Motorbike. So this has been thoroughly aired today, but this is not a court of law, and all these things really have to be determined, unfortunately, by a court, since evidently that's the road they're going to take. And thank you for your...
Thank you, Mr. Ferre. Mr. Gonzalez, any questions? Ms. Treasurer Rodriguez-Pina?
Thank you. I do enjoy the opportunity to see democracy at work, and for those of you who believe that it's not alive and well, this is an example, and these people on this board and your participation is what this country is all about. So that is satisfying to me, and part of the reason I take this role very seriously. Last time at the Operations Committee, I asked a series of questions that were directed at staff. At this point, I have not heard anything to the contrary. These are professional folks that we rely on as experts, that we rely on, that they're human too. So we question and we challenge staff. We challenge that because we all bring our diverse experience and perspectives to this board. So I can assure you that not our general counsel, not our procurement director, not our executive director, anybody in this organization gets a pass from us. And I say us collectively, these people on this board. So I can tell you why we're volunteers. We're very cognizant of the seriousness of our responsibilities, the ramifications of our decisions, and the ramifications to individual lives and the people that are employed by both entities and the people that are going to be affected by this. So I can assure you a lot of decision and thought is being put into this. So I wanted to make that clear. I hope I speak for the rest of the board here, the true group of professionals that take their responsibility serious, along with staff. Mr. Counsel, General Counsel, I wanted to ask you, if we decided to do anything different than your recommendation, can you tell us what is it that we can expect? And, you know, we have to make a decision here whether to outweigh some of the things that Mr. Consil said. There's time, there's money, versus the time and money of litigation, the time and money of expected delays. So, you know, Mr. Consil makes a great argument. You know, 210 days less, a few $1 million, you know, that is significant and compelling. However, I want to weigh that in the context of our legal challenges, how much longer if we decided to go against the recommendation of staff. And nobody has a crystal ball here, so I know that you can't predict, but you can give us some guidance, and I would ask that question of both Ms. Cordero and our Executive Director.
Okay, you want me to address it first?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think one of the things this board has to think about is Odebrecht comply with the requirements of the ITB, and based on, they would be able to mount a successful challenge to MDX if we were going against the terms of the ITB and its previous action and waive MCM's failure to include a mandatory pre-qualification as a minor irregularity. I think, from my understanding of the case law, Odebrecht would argue the case law cited above and demonstrate that any such waiver would be arbitrary and capricious. Also, our procurement policy allows us to move forward, so we don't have to stop. I know it's put in their brief to the court that we're subject to 120, but we are not subject. We're specifically exempt from 120. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I think what I'm looking for is really perspective of what we can anticipate based on your unique experience, Ms. Cordero's, and our Executive Director, to give us really, when we make a decision, you know, we understand fully what's available to us.
Thank you. Ms. Shelley, Vice Chair Shelley Fano, any questions?
No, I think...
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you're not done? Anything? Helen, please respond. I apologize.
From the perspective of the procurement process, we will be setting precedent that we will have to live with moving forward in the rest of our procurement processes. The same way that MCM presented what they feel have been precedent that the agency has set before, we will be faced with that if we were to deviate from our common practices. We have been very consistent, and to Mr. Walters, who asked what were the differences in what they showed on the screen. Without getting into the details of each of the examples that they showed, I can assure you that we are being consistent with what we have with our prior practices. I think the distinction here is that, yes, we have the right to waive minor irregularities. That has never been the dispute. I think it's clear that the agency has that right, and we have waived it in the past and exercised that right. But this is not a minor irregularity, and I think that that's where we're not in concert. So to that end, we're being consistent. If we were to deviate from that, we would be setting a precedent that then would probably cost us more moving forward in other procurements.
Through the chair, a second.
Of course.
Just for the record, how many years have you been working in this organization, and how much history do you have to give the perspective? Well, I think it's important to give us perspective because you've seen a lot and done a lot, and I think that would merit. If you would have started last week, I would question you more.
Actually, May will be 20 years that I've been working for MDX. Sorry?
Any other questions, Mr. Treasurer?
Actually, from my perspective, I couldn't say it any better. It's about precedent. You know, I've seen this, I've heard it at the Operations Committee, and as Helen stated, without getting into each specific case that was presented before us in the presentation, we've never waived a pre-qualification requirement, and that's what this is about. I have been participant in my experience of being on the evaluation of projects, both here at MDX, where consultants were found non-responsive for not having a form filled out, as at the county for not having forms filled out. Precedent is important. Consistency is important. And for many years, and Vice Chair Fano will attest to this, we didn't even want to waive minor irregularities. We wanted perfect proposals. So from my perspective, I haven't heard anything that would sway me from our position, Mr. Treasurer.
Vice Chair.
Just a comment, because one of the professionals that stood and spoke to us, I believe, alluded to the fact that it was uncomfortable. I don't know that I speak for my fellow board members, but I can speak for myself, and it's uncomfortable for us to be up here. But I'd like to take this opportunity to thank staff, the executive director, council, for giving us such wonderful input and guidance. Without you, we couldn't do it. Thank you very much.
Has anyone else have any questions? Because if not, I'll ask. There was one thing that struck me, and I want to clarify this. Let me be clear. We're dealing with two exceptional organizations here. I don't think there's any question that I have the utmost respect for Overbrecht and for MCM for the ability to do the project. I think they have worked with us in the past and done very well. And Ms. McNeil, I know you have been involved in other of our bids as well, so I have no question in that capacity. There was a comment made, Mr. Rodriguez, about the fact that there was some pending litigation involving the previous bid that MCM lost, and I believe there was counsel a directed verdict in our favor in that case, and that case is currently just pending appeal. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, the appeal was on February 29th.
And there was an allegation made that somehow that issue is relating to that. I've been on this board for 8 years. If I recall specifically one indication of this, I believe we were in some extremely heated litigation with Community Asphalt, if I'm correct.
Correct.
To the extent that actually that case went to trial. And
yes, it did.
We were actually successful in our position in that case, correct? Nonetheless, am I not correct to recall that there was, in the middle of that litigation, there was a RFP that came forward and Community Asphalt was actually the winning bid in that case. Is that correct?
Correct. Correct.
The reason I emphasize that is that this is not easy for any of us. We know many people on both sides, staff even more so. But I wanted to indicate that this idea that this is personal is simply not the case because precedent has been established that we were in extremely heated litigation. In fact, litigation that even caused a disagreement among board members on how to resolve that case, if I recall. Ms. Fano and I were on one side of that one, refusing to settle, and some others were not. Nonetheless, Community Asphalt had a bid initially right in the middle of that, and they were the successful bidders. Why? Because they won the bid, because they followed the procedure and they followed the rules. I emphasize that because I never want anyone to leave our board meetings ever thinking that this is personal. I extremely hard to give both sides as much time as possible. Chairwoman Gutierrez at the Operation Committee did the exact same thing. I did it today because I want everyone to have their opportunity to be heard. And I believe that is very important because we are transparent. At the end of the day, we answer to the people, and I want the people to please understand that this isn't personal. We could be wrong. My wife will tell you I'm wrong every day of the week. But we try to be honest and fair. So I wanted that to be on the record, that this is not the first time we have been involved in litigation where someone suing us has in fact won a bid from us as well. So I wanted to put that in the record as well. Thank you. Thank you. There's been a second. There's been a motion. We've had discussion. Does anyone wish any further discussion on this item? Hearing no further discussion. Ms. Secretary, because of some of the comments, I'd like to have a roll call vote on this matter.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Cancio.
I am against.
Mr. Ferrer.
I am for.
Mr. Gonzalez.
For.
Meyer.
Yay.
Mr. Vasquez. Mr. Walters. Secretary Pago. Treasurer Rodriguez Pina.
Yes.
Vice Chair Fano. Chair Martinez.
Yes.
Motion passes.
The motion passes.
Motion passes. Thank you. And with one no, correct?
No.
Thank you. For the record, I welcome MCM to vote to come forward and bid on any other of our projects. I look forward to the opportunity for them to present other projects in the future with us as well. Thank you for the presentations and for the professionalism on both sides today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before we proceed, there was an item on the agenda.
We haven't got the D yet.
No, understood,
Okay.
understood, but it's to clarify the agenda for the audience. Item E on the agenda, 9E, was pulled from the Public Communications Intergovernmental Agenda, and it was still on this pending approval. Because it was pulled at the committee, it'll be pulled of this agenda as well, so it'll come back at a later date, just for clarification.
So I'm going to take it as...
Yeah, it's...
I'm going to take it as they say in court, off calendar.
Yes.
That's all right. Item D, please, Mr. Counsel.
MDX procurement contract, RFQ 16-02, General Engineering Consultant Services, Work Program Production, GECA, endorsed by the Operations Committee on January 20, 2016. Approval of contract award.
Anyone wish to move the item? Moved by Mr. Vasquez, seconded by Mr. Cancio and Treasurer Rodriguez. We have two. Item is now open for discussion. Does anyone, who's going to present for staff?
It's, again, procurement. Helen is prepared to discuss it if anybody wants to discuss it.
Actually, does anyone need any discussion for who are not present to the operations? Yes, Mr. Meyer.
I'd just like to move this motion to be amended by including a cap of 5 firms.
No, this is,
This is a different item.
Different.
No, this is...
Oh, my apologies.
Item D.
Well, let's save that for when we get to that one. Thank you.
No, the other one's taken off.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Not the first, I've done it myself. So, any questions on item D, please? Mr. Rodriguez-Pena.
Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Dodson just stepped out. I wanted to basically take him up on his offer, and he said that they will give us an opportunity to learn and to see how we can encourage participation. So I would respectfully request that we set up a meeting in the betterment of this organization, right? Because he may have something to propose to us that we don't know. So I would, Mr. Dodson, in his opening comments, the public comments, said that he had some perspectives that he wanted to share with us. So I wanted to go on the record that it is the will of this board member in particular to listen to what he's got to say so we can learn. Furthermore, I wanted to share that it is unfortunate that a bid was not submitted, and therefore there's nothing we can do about it. And I would have wished that there would be competition at every level, kind of like the competition we've seen in the previous items. I wish that other bidders would have submitted and then would have fought that fight with a submission. So it's unfortunate. So our decision is relatively easy today to move forward with the recommendation of staff. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Let's be clear, though. The presentation that was done by HNTV was outstanding, and I have been briefed on them. So let's not in any way, shape, or form imply that we are not getting quality work here by HNTV, and I'd like to congratulate the fact that, and if I may clarify something, one of the things that I think was essential, and I'm going to give you credit for this, Rick, is we aggressively analyzed the contract for GECA. We thought out of the box. We asked for more. And I believe the reason we got more from HNTV is because we asked for more. And I want to congratulate them for doing an outstanding job because their scores reflect that. They still had to put on a presentation for us, and they still did an outstanding job. It is unfortunate that those who had the opportunity to bid did not. And I absolutely agree. I welcome the opportunity, and any member of staff, if Mr. Dodson wishes to meet with staff or any member of this board, now that the cone of silence has been lifted for the future, I concretely agree with you that that should be something to do. But the opportunity to bid was blown. And that is something that we are now faced with an excellent team that has done an outstanding job getting ready to help us. So let's move forward with that. And we've heard a first and a second. Mr. Ferretti, we should make any comments?
Yeah, I just want to make one short comment. We had a presentation by HNTB at the MPO, one of the MPO committees today. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to commend all of you on the board to look at the presentation made by Albert. I don't know whether Albert is here today. But I just want to, on the record, say this is one of the best presentations that I've seen, and it really justifies the faith that staff and the board has on with HNTB. Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Concio? I could see in your eyes you wanted to say something.
Before we close, I would like to make a quick statement.
Well, we're not closing. We have to do our shade meeting, so we're not, we're gonna
Okay,
just
but
deal with this. You can say it now if you want, absolutely, whenever you wish.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a quick statement. If the House Bill 299 from the State Representative Janet Nunes passes...
Mr. Concio, that has nothing to do with this issue. If you wish to make that comment after the shade meeting before we adjourn, you'll be fine to, but I'm just dealing with this issue at this time, please. Thank you. We're just dealing with D at this moment. Any other
Board
questions?
members, if
Yes.
I may, to clarify a statement that was made by Mr. Dotson, before you take a vote, for clarity purposes, this is not a sole source.
Right.
Many consultants can do this type of work. The fact that only one chose to submit doesn't make it a sole source. That's all I want to put for the record.
And let's make it very clear, this board has always wanted, it has been a competition. We pushed forward for that. We're very excited to work with both our GECA and GECB contractors for the future, and we welcome any opportunity to discuss anything with others. In fact, I think there has been discussion with others who have not bid with us, and there is going to be future discussion. We are not perfect. We need to improve our system, and that's part of being human. And I'd like to, any other questions? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, item passes unanimously. Item E has been removed. The only items left are informational. Council, I'd like to, if it's acceptable, I'd like to do the shade meeting at this time, and I need to read something into the record, I believe, correct?
I gave it.
I know I have it.
Okay. It is, what time is this? 5:49 for the record.
Well, as soon as I start talking, it'll be 5:50. So, the time is now 5:50. We are about to have an attorney-client session in accordance with Florida Statute 286.011 regarding the litigation style Electronic Transaction Consultants Corporation versus Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. Case number 12-46272 CA40 in the 11th Judicial Circuit in for Miami-Dade County, Florida. The session is estimated to last 30 to 45 minutes, and the following people will be in attendance. Myself, Chairman Luis Martinez, Vice Chair Shelley Fano, Treasurer Rick Rodriguez-Pina, Board Member Arthur Meyer, Secretary and Board Member Gus Pagel, Board Member Alfredo Gonzalez, Board Member Javier Vasquez, and Board Member Pepe Cancio. That's everyone. MDX attorneys, Carlos Zaldivar, Francis Steelman, outside counsel, Mr. Joseph Scarota, and Michael Ernstein. I hope I got the name right. If I didn't, I apologize profusely. Javier Vasquez, the executive director. These proceedings will be recorded by certified court reporter, and at the conclusion of all litigations discussed, the transcripts will be made part of the public record. All the individuals who have not been named should leave this room. What we are going to do, in accordance with those who are here, we are going to step into our side office so that the public can stay here and stay comfortable and not have to step out. Conclusion of the attorney-client session, and then I will reopen the meeting at that time.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Maurice Ferre. I also will be at the meeting. Thank you.
And I apologize, Mr. Mayor, you were not on this list, and that is my fault. Please forgive me, Mr. Board Member and Mayor Maurice Ferre. Yes.
I have to excuse myself.
That's fine. As a conflict, or just excuse yourself?
I'm sorry?
Are you leaving because you're leaving, or because it's a conflict for you?
I have another board meeting.
That's fine. Mr. Vasquez could be there, but he won't be there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you. I'm recalling the board meeting. Counsel, where is my legal counsel? Oh, there we are. Good. I believe I am now required by regulation to read. I will now reopen the public meeting. The attorney-client session has now been terminated, and members of the general public are now invited to return for any proceedings or matters before the board. I'm recalling the January 26, 2016 Board of Governors meeting to order. Mr. Cancio, thank you very much for your patience. I know you wanted to read something into the record, and I promised you that I would, and I'm going to keep my promise to you. Please go ahead, Board Member Cancio.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a quick statement. Please. The House Bill 299 from the State Representative Janet Nunez passed in Tallahassee next week, and to reduce the MDX Expressway Authority Board from 13 to 9 members, I, Jose Pepe Cancio, will resign if the bill goes in effect. As you know, Miami-Dade County member will be reduced from 7 to 5 members, and the appointee by the governor of Florida, the Honorable Rick Scott, from 5 to 3. I mentioned to the governor yesterday my decision. Governor Scott is busy running the state and bringing new business and jobs, and my decision will make it easier for him to decide on the person that will have to step down. As for the Miami-Dade County appointees, I don't know who will make the decision to reduce the board. I'm not sure if the member with more tenure will go, or the new appointment one, or the one who have more clout with the Miami-Dade County Commission will stay. As you know, something that I want to say is, as you know, Mr. Robert Holland resigned last month, having spent almost 10 years in the board. I would like some type of recognition to be made by the MDX board in the next board meeting.
Well, Mr. Cancio, if I may, number one, obviously, my goal is to not lose any of my board members. So hopefully we will remain the same number we are, because I enjoy the debates and conversations we had with you and with everyone else. So my hope and prayers are that we stay with the same number, because there's nothing better than a good, lively debate. Insofar as Robert Holland, I think I can speak on behalf of the board, myself. The recognition that we did for Mr. Maurice Ferre and for Board Member Maritza Gutierrez that I wanted to did this in December was also prepared and is in place for Mr. Robert Holland. So I'm looking forward for him being present. I was already on top of that before you suggested it. It's just we're waiting for him to come to a board meeting, because I want to recognize his 10 years as well.
But you know, I never heard that from you before. You know?
Because I wanted to keep it a surprise.
No, we have to communicate a little more.
Well, I wanted to keep it a surprise, just like I surprised Mayor Ferre and Ms. Gutierrez. I wanted to surprise Mr. Holland as well. It's just, you forced my hand. Any other matters that we need to deal with?
Chairman?
Yes.
I move to adjourn. Thank you.
Whoa.
I just wanted to recognize our newest grandfather, Alfredo Gonzalez.
Congratulations, and I call for a clap.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Movement for adjourn granted. Ladies and gentlemen, my comments are very quick. Thank you for a very long meeting. I will speak much more in detail at the next one. Meeting adjourned. And for...